got a whole lot to cover this week on the show. Donald Trump says don't worry about the Epstein files. The Colbert is no longer having a job. Late night television is totally getting mixed up. And also, NPR and PBS are actually going to be losing money here on the New England Take.
The New England Take.
NewEnglandTake.com. Please be sure to like and subscribe. We have a Substack going right now. If you go to NewEnglandTake.com, subscribe. If you feel like throwing me a few bucks, feel free to do so, but just at least sign up for the list. We want to start going way beyond what YouTube does or does not allow me to have for an audience, so that's the place to check out. Also excited that the Granite Grok picks up the show every Saturday, and starting August 2nd, we're going to be broadcasting again on WKXL in Concord and Manchester, so stay tuned for some more information with regards to that. But let's start off with the Epstein files. This has, if there's one thing that I think, honestly, at this point, that can derail the entire MAGA movement, it apparently is going to be the Epstein files. The tragic meme of Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary for Donald Trump, having to stand next to him as he outright tells the press, "Why are you guys worrying about this? This isn't a big deal. What's your problem? Why are you obsessed over this?" Well, just sad music plays on the background, and she tries really hard not to shake her head and look back at Trump again, not making eye contact with the press in any way. It's fascinating. I don't know whether I really ever accepted the fact whether Trump would allow that the files to ever really come out. It's always been this weird thing where he was friends with the guy for a decade and a half, and it was known that he literally joked around that he liked him young, which is terrifying to imagine just writing off something like that. So much of his cabinet, I think he really didn't understand how much of his cabinet relied on the Epstein didn't kill himself meme and the pedophile rings that are alleged happening in circles of power in this country. The way he just says, like, why, whatever, who cares? The fact he didn't fire Pam Bondi right away for the way it was rolled out, like, I seriously don't think he realized how vital this was to the narrative of the Drain the Swamp movement. Literally, I want to go back to the Pam Bondi thing because I can't imagine not firing her right away. I mean, she was, before all this came out, said, I got a stack of documents and evidence sitting on my desk. I have the Epstein list. I have all the things that everyone's been begging for since this whole fiasco started when he was found hung in his, or strangled in his prison cell. And she was out there doing it, Bongino and Kash Patel, like, these guys made a whole multimedia presence centered around conspiracies around things of this nature. And where do we end up? Why are you guys worried about this? Come on, let's move on. Move on, guys. You guys are still thinking about Epstein? Why? Why are you worried about this? Well, we're worried about it as a general public for many reasons. A lack of faith in the federal government and its ability to get anything done. That's big. That's huge. 2, the fact that we're just people who are in power and are involved with really sketchy things, whether it's fraud, foreign relations, or straight up the pedophilia allegations that have been involved with all this continuing to go on, are crazy. 3, like I said, this is a cornerstone of the MAGA movement. You cannot forget this. This is huge. The fact J.D. Vance has been kind of MIA when it comes to all this. In fact, Bongino took a personal day last Friday. And then so he's back at it again. This could be a real issue if he's now beginning, after much processing. I'm recording this on July 18th, middle of the afternoon, and we're starting to see, we'll go back and we'll release some things. He did not know the can of worms, Trump, that he was going to be opening by just writing off everything in this way. It really is something to behold. And now there's all sorts of both sides conspiracies. Oh, this definitely means Trump is on some list and they've got evidence to show he was doing some unsavory things with young people in some way or something like that. it doesn't necessarily mean that. I mean, we also see on the other side, well, why didn't Biden release it? Why didn't Trump release it? Because it goes back and forth politically, where everyone says, well, the other side must have evidence, and that's why why didn't they put it out? Well, it's because probably everyone's implicated in some way when it comes to the Epstein files, as in the case. I don't mean necessarily the list or anything like that, which we honestly don't know if it exists, or it has been just something put out there by politicians and operators of either political party. We don't know if there's like a list where there's a bunch of names. Odds are this guy, Epstein, was a con man. Let's go all the way back. What it comes all the way down to, he is a con man that manipulated people. He did a lot of managing money for some of the biggest elites in this country when it comes to their money and science and things like that, and weaseled his way in to be a person of influence. And when that happens, the circles cross between the Democrats and the Republicans. There's no way around it. If there are a bunch of files when it comes to Epstein and such, both parties are implicated. You see the circles of MIT. Brett Weinstein has talked about this a bit too, because he had dinner with him one time as a party. It wasn't a personal dinner, and he had some really interesting things to say about just how good he is at bringing people in. Epstein knew what he was doing, and odds are he, one way or another, if he did off himself, it's because it wasn't like when he was in Florida and arrested the first time. He was getting the book thrown at him in this situation because he'd received national attention when it came to the headlines of this case. It was gonna be, he's going to go to jail, or his life was going to be at risk when it came to the Clintons, for example, is always the conspiracy. So the Clintons are the ones who did him in. We honestly don't know, and the Department of Justice has really not helped themselves in any way. They released a bunch of video from the jail where he was being held, where there's a minute missing, allegedly because it's some ghetto security system that they have over there, and that's the reason why they don't have that minute. And they don't the camera isn't really exact with where it shows. And apparently the metadata shows it was edited in Adobe Premiere, which they've been claiming this whole time it was raw video. If it's been in Premiere, it has been edited in some way, possibly cropped, possibly. It's very easy with a stationary security camera video to put footage in that wasn't there previously. Very easily. It does not take much to do that in Premiere if you have a stationary camera. It doesn't look good. I mean, the fact they said they have this, and then we don't have this. We have the data. We don't have the data. We got a list. We don't have a list. We're going to release all the footage from the jail, and then they don't release all the footage from the jail, and then it shows it was edited. It is not a good look. It's going to be a serious problem going forward for the movement, and I never would have thought Epstein would bring down the Trump administration. Maybe I'm being a little dramatic by saying it, but I didn't think the Epstein situation would bring down the Trump administration. But there's some serious issues in the movement, and now you're having Charlie Kirk, for example, was talking about it recently. He interviewed Trump, and at the end of it, he went, I don't know, I guess I'm going to have to move on here because I don't know what to do. And if the influencers like Kirk and such are really at a loss, I mean, it doesn't take much for dominoes to fall to further issues. And then you got on the other side Ben Shapiro, who's out there like half celebrating. It's like, what's wrong with you guys? We figured it out. We got the answer. It's all a bunch of conspiracies, you crazy people out there saying all these things were going on in the background and Trump's implicated and whatever. There's both sides that are just nightmarish when you look at it. Megyn Kelly and Shapiro had a debate on it. Shapiro he looks like a shill. There's no way around it. He looks like a shill. I'm really having a hard time listening to his show anymore. I'm a regular daily listener for the Ben Shapiro show because he gives kind of a different take than some of the other right-wing commentators out there. But it's getting harder between Israel and this to really continue to stomach what he's saying. And it goes to the same thing we were always called out for with the Biden administration, where we were told by Democrats forever, trust the man, he's got this down. What are you talking about? Why don't you trust what's coming from the Biden administration? Shapiro and a bunch of these other true MAGA supporters that are caving on it are giving the same exact look. And it's not a good look. it's going to look really bad in the midterms, and if we don't have like some really good things go on here in the next couple months, as more candidates begin to prep their run for 2026 Congress, we're going to have big problems on the right when it comes to what happens next, because Democrats are going to have tons of ammo they're going to be able to throw at the situation, and they'll have no one to to thank except for Trump for that failure because of the way this was handled. I don't know, it's one of those wait-and-see situations. All right, moving on to National Public Radio. It looks like the rescission bill, it was, once again, recording Friday, overnight, it was approved by the House, and this is approved by the Senate earlier in the week, and it's heading to Trump's desk, and he's going to sign it. There's no way around it. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting has always received, they're expecting $1.1 billion over 2 years, is now going to be going away. Personally, I think that's great. I don't think that we should be subsidizing these obviously left-leaning outlets. I had Michael Graham of NH Journal on the show a few weeks ago to talk about the situation. Michael's got a lot of excitement. He went a direction that I didn't expect. It was entirely centered around the political side of it, and everyone knows what's going on when it comes to the National Public Radio outlets and such, that they have a left-wing leaning. There's no way around it. I've been a longtime editor of Making Media Now, a podcast on where the host talks to all sorts of media creators in the state, and many of them are funded by PBS through one way or another, or they're syndicated through the PBS stations. And guess what? There's a certain bent to the editorial direction of the documentaries and the shows that they have there. They do have some stuff that's pretty non-political, but I mean, there's been some stuff on Sesame Street there where people have had red flags, like, why are you guys doing this? There's serious questions. And in the current media landscape, with the way everything exists, like I talk about, I'm going to be going on WKXL again. I worked there for 11 years previously. They never received funding from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting because they're not an NPR affiliate, and they don't get these handouts. Like, why should a small independently owned radio station not receive the same sort of support as anyone else? When you look at NPR, they're a behemoth when it comes to the journalism landscape of this country. NHPR here, New Hampshire Public Radio, is a huge outlet. I actually ran through their list. They have 38 employees. I can't think of another single operating outlet in the state that has 38 employees. Their journalism staff is in the teens. It's huge. They're one of the biggest newsrooms in the state, 100%. I mean, maybe the union leaders pushing that with being the statewide outlet, but I'd imagine a lot of them are part-timers and not necessarily people there on staff all the time. A lot of the NHPR, to be fair, there are a lot of part-timers over there too, but that's a huge outlet. They have broadcasting all over the state, and what we always hear over and over again is we need it for public safety and things of that nature. When you look at the state of broadcasting in New Hampshire, there's tons of radio stations. You can't go anywhere in the state without hitting a whole bunch of radio stations across the dial. The emergency alert system is going to be picked up by all these outlets. So this is it's a non-argument on that side. And the biggest thing here, Jim Schachter especially was pushing out a fair bit, who's the CEO or the president, I can't remember, maybe the president over at New Hampshire Public Radio, saying this is a attack on the freedom of the press. No. If the government is funding one specific outlet that has a very specific editorial bent, it is not freedom of the press. It's freedom of the press for all these other independent agencies is setting the playing field equally, because the federal government should not have a say in the media landscape. It's bad enough all the stuff that the FCC has done over the years, and a lot of that's fortunately been pulled back over the last 15 or so years, but there's a lot of push by the FCC and various organizations to keep things in a certain way, and I want them entirely out of it. This is the libertarian side of me. They should not have any say on any of it. It's bad enough they have a say in content when it comes to certain things. I'm not a huge fan of necessarily all that stuff, but when you look that there's one specific syndicated franchise of stations that's receiving more than $1 billion every couple of years, that's huge. And let's look at it from another angle here, that we can turn this positively. I know I'm not the only person that said it, but I've been saying it for a while. with this funding cut being gone, New Hampshire Public Radio receives 6% of their budget from federal grants and through the corporation. It's 6% of your budget. You're going to have the biggest fundraising push you've ever had because of this, if I had to guess. If you do it right, if you play your cards right, and you immediately hit on it, you guys have a tremendous staff that does this all the time. They're in the field all the time. I see them regularly. That's all they do is work on donations and partnerships and things like that. You're going to get so much money from this from private donors. There's enough rich people in New Hampshire where you can weasel some more money from your either corporations that offer that want to get involved to make sure the press is protected, things of that nature, or just people. There's a lot of lefties in the state. There's a reason why we always send a bunch of Democrats to D.C. Like, this is your time, guys. You can really open the floodgates here to funding in ways that you probably didn't know existed. It may be some of the people that are more in the middle and are, naive to the editorial bent of these public radio stations. They may be more willing to jump in because of all the press this has received. I mean, this has been getting a ton of press. But you guys should not be, I got into it a little bit on the Civics 101 pod on their Instagram account because they posted this video allegedly being nonpartisan. They have self-interest. So anytime an outlet is talking about themselves in the world, they have an editorial bent they're looking to do, and that's normal. They should. They're serving a purpose, and their purpose in that situation, when it came to this post specifically, was to promote the reason why the federal government gives money to this. But it's not the 60s anymore. This was 1967, I believe, this went into effect. There's no reason in 2025 for that to be the case. You can do a podcast for, you get your cell phone here, you can do a podcast, and if you have the right audience and the right way to do it, you're going to get a ton of views. You go on YouTube, you partner with other news agencies, and if you're a public radio station that's well established in the state, you've had your head start. You've received your head start money to get off the ground and get rolling here. It's time to move on and stand on your own 2 feet. And if the model doesn't make sense, where maybe you need to start doing advertising in some way, I don't understand how you can't be a nonprofit and do sponsorships in a different way that are maybe more productive. The many ways nonprofits do sponsorships in this state for their various advocacies that they do is tremendous. You look at what State's Newsroom has done. They're not receiving federal funds. They've opened up outlets, digital outlets across the country. When you look at the amount of funding it requires for broadcast operations, yes, it's huge. It's very expensive. But once again, it's 6% of your budget. Figure it out, just like every other radio station. Benny Media has exploded in the state. What Manchester, I can't remember, the WFEA and such, what they're doing down there, they don't receive funds either. There's WKBK over in the Keene area. There's Mount Washington Valley has radio stations too. You guys aren't special. You guys should be just the same and figuring it out, because maybe it'll help bring the market down, because there's not this federal subsidies anymore too when it comes to the cost of equipment and things like that. If you're a nonprofit and go to them saying, hey, we don't receive federal funding anymore, we got to cut a deal on this equipment because we can't afford to drop so much on it, maybe it'll help the market too when it comes to the equipment. But enough's enough. We're moving on. And I could not believe this when I saw it. Let's move on to the last subject here. So BBC Colbert says the Late Show will end after 33 years. And yeah, it should have probably ended when Letterman retired, honestly. We went through a few different hosts, and Stephen Colbert, when growing up, there was The Daily Show and The Colbert Report were huge. And that's when a lot of the things that I learned how being on mic and things like that talking are from the parody and satirization of the media and things like that really raised interest in me, and it got me into radio and things of that nature, is those sorts of things being out there and podcasting beginning to blow up. Stephen Colbert was a real player in that, but he gave that up, went over to The Late Show, took over when Letterman retired after, I think he was the founder of the show 33 years ago. And it turned into this self-righteous, preachy program. especially during COVID. COVID really ruined, I think, that whole media landscape. We look at Fallon and things like that. It was... They were beginning to do well because the YouTube algorithm was feeding them extensively, but when the COVID pandemic hit, it really did a number to the ability to be funny. It turned into these preachy shows where it was entirely, once again, it was very one-sided. It was all Democrats. It was these broadcast outlets were only giving establishment Democrat voices a platform on these shows. And when you look at what happened with Colbert especially, it's sad. The guy was funny. Like, he did a good job. I mean, the real standout moment from the last few years, there really was the nail in the coffin, in my opinion, and the whole format, or this whole franchise of the format, was when Colbert had, they were talking about the virus, and Jon Stewart was on there with him, and they were talking about the cause of the virus, and Stewart was one of the funniest moments. Please look it up if you haven't seen it, but it was, how on earth could you imagine a coronavirus would possibly come from the coronavirus lab in Wuhan, China? Like, it's this whole thing. And Colbert just refused to buy into it because he was so fed into the swamp data from DC all the nonsense that came from Fauci and the CDC and organizations like that. It is a serious failure to not be able to, if you can't find even the most serious things funny in some way, that's a failure of you as a comedian. Because there should always be an angle you can take. I mean, there's a reason why Shane Gillis is blowing up right now, because there is no holds barred. He's going to go out there and do it. It's the reason why Joe Rogan got out there and people were finding him so funny in his comedy and with the podcast. And it's like we talk through and joke about it, but you're seeing now with Theo Von, the flagrant guys, the things that are going on like that. People have had enough of the corporate political agenda being shoved down their throats, and you can't joke about anything anymore. People have had enough, and the success of these guys that are now on the podcast circuit, thanks to the Joe Rogan experience kind of raising these ships, is huge. I mean, the reason why RFK got so much attention last cycle, it wasn't because he was going on late night anymore. Those days are long gone. They're going on Flagrant. They're going on Rogan. They're going on all the Theo Von. Like, it was one of the most humanizing video podcasts was Trump on Theo Von's show, and they're talking about cocaine. Like, what the hell was that? And it was a moment of, okay, these are people, whether they're screw-ups or not, they're people. And when, I don't think that's bad. And a lot of Democrats were really pissed off with the way that Theo Von handled it, because they thought that you're humanizing a guy they view literally as Hitler. They literally call him Hitler and a fascist and all these things over and over again, and a racist. And Theo's like, hey, you've got a lot of faults. I got a lot of faults. Let's talk through some of these things that are going on in the world. And that was successful. The reason why a lot of the guys really started voting for Trump during the last cycle was because of this. The boomer media agenda has left, and it's now online. Once again, going back to the NPR thing too, like, radio's great. It has a very valuable purpose. It's not going anywhere as much as people thought it was going anywhere. It's not like newspapers. It's a totally different format and how it works, and how it's just free and on the air with the advertising is totally different from like newspapers and things like that. But people don't have a TV in their car. Like, they've got plus they're listening to podcasts. Like, the digital outlets of podcasts are huge, and it's changing the game. It's kind of an oversaturated market, unfortunately, and it's been going back to the BKXL, to be very straightforward, is there's an audience there at radio, and there's an audience there when it comes to the audio platforms and YouTube and things like that. Late night TV is only on during that time. Ultimately, the numbers just aren't there anymore. The only reason why Fallon really got a lot of attention was because of his bits he would do. They would get pushed onto YouTube, and YouTube was pushing them big time. It is not because of their commentary. I'm sorry. Yes, they do have a few 100,000 people tuning in and when they have their shows, but when you look at the views that like Breaking Points and such are getting online and their podcast feed, once again, like Rogan's millions of views every month, it's the format has changed, and for some reason the late night shows don't know, either they don't know what to do with it, there's no way to do anything productive on it, or they're still stuck in their political box and they don't know how to move on, it really seems like. Because you start getting some heterodox thinkers in there, they get called out online, and the executives at these companies freak out and say, no, we're not doing that anymore. And people have had enough. They want to be able to judge for themselves what they view as appropriate or not, and they're going to continue to do that online, on some of these radio outlets, on the podcast feeds, on the YouTubes. Like, this is the future of media, and hold on to your pants, because I think we're still in the middle of a huge seismic shift when you look at where the media is honestly going, because we still have a lot of boomers that are alive and watching cable news, the CNNs, your Fox News and all that. So a bunch of them tuning into the late night TV. You got some younger people that are tuning in, sure, but it's nothing in the numbers in comparison. And maybe a lot of these shows will just go into online sort of things. Maybe the broadcast stations should start pivoting in some way, but I think they're flailing and they don't know where to go. And a lot of us millennials and such, we're going online. We don't care. We're done. All right. That's all I got to say on this. NewEnglandTake.com. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Please be sure to check out GraniteGrock.com. Big thank you to WKXL for picking up the show here in a couple weeks. Excited to be back on the airwaves. We're planning on right now, it will be Saturdays at 7:30 a.m. 8:30 a.m. leading into Facing the Future, put on by the Concord Coalition, which is a great show. And I'm excited to be back over with those guys. They have a great station over there. I've been on Ken Kale's show. He does the morning drive show there all the time. He's awesome. So excited to be back in the fold over there. But all right, NewEnglandTake.com. We'll talk to you soon.